You mamas are awesome. And today, just today, is about you. Tomorrow, everything goes back to normal. The laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, the taking care of the whole family. It all goes back to normal tomorrow. But today, it's all about you. And, you know, I was coming into the sanctuary this morning just as we're about to start. And I like to, when I can, I like to stop at the classrooms and just to let teachers know, I know you're in here. I see you. I know that you're serving today, and I appreciate it. And the rooms were just full of mamas. And I wish there was a way that we could not have mothers serving today and they could all be in here. But I'm just going to tell you, this is just church history across the board. Mamas are the glue that keeps the body of Christ flowing. I don't know where we'd be without them, but we love you mothers. And I want to show you some stuff that I've showed you before through the years. But through the years, our ears get tuned differently, and we hear things differently, and we hear things that has been said before, but we never heard them that way or heard them in the personal way. I want to challenge you moms today, because I'm just going to tell you that this morning I'm going to be speaking from a position of a man who would not be standing before you if his mother was not the mother that she was. My mom isn't here today. She's not in heaven yet, but in fact, she's about as far away from heaven as you can get. She's in Boston. So, she'll be moving back here this summer sometime for good, and you'll get to see her a lot. And then she will be almost in heaven, but still not quite. My mom turned 95 years old just a few weeks ago, and she's still kicking high and just as spry as the day is long, and just as smart alecky and just all that stuff, man. And she's a hoot, and you're going to get to enjoy her. And as the weeks get closer for her moving here, I will probably be cautioning you about any time you're around her to whatever she says to make sure you run it past me first. And if she tells you stories about me that sounds just a little too extreme, then I just want you to know it's probably not true. She's probably at that point going into that old age kind of senility thing where she's not remembering the truth. Now, if she tells you something weird about Robbie, it's probably true. But if she tells you weird stories about me, just know that, hey, just walk away going, oh, she's old. What does she know? I sure hope and pray my mom is not going to be watching this today, because I'm in trouble. Look at this passage of Scripture in Luke chapter 2, beginning with verse 41. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. And after the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy, Yeshua, stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. And I'm still unclear about how that happened, but if you've ever watched Home Alone, you know it is possible. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. And when they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. And after 3 days, this is just another prophetic piece of the Jesus story. There's so many stories that after 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, what we would call church today, sitting among the teachers, what we would call probably pastors today, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this?" And if you could just pause that for a second. Is there anybody besides me that grew up in a home where no matter what happened, your mom kind of made it all about her? Why are you doing this to me? And my mom, her famous line was, anytime that we were not acting right and something had to be done, she would always say, "Well, I know I'm not much of a mother." And I knew it was manipulation. I knew what she was doing, but I fell for it. Everything. "Oh, Mom, you're a great mom." I wonder what she would have done. She said, "Yeah, I know I'm not much of a mother." I said, "Well, you really aren't." Man, she would have backhanded me again. Of course, her thing was really pulling hair. Because she learned that in church. You know, when you're sitting in church and you're cutting up and the arm comes up on the pew behind you and you keep talking and suddenly she's got your hair and she, jerks your head back. And let me tell you, when that happens in a Pentecostal church, there's a chain reaction. And the whole place breaks out because the Holy Ghost is there. All it takes is one little head whip, and buddy, everybody's going then. If you didn't grow up in Pentecostal churches, you have no idea what you have missed. No, and yes, some of us still carry some scars, but we also have some good stories, man, and some good memories, some God memories. Why are you doing this to us, she said. Why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. Why were you searching for me, he asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying. And I want you to understand the context here. They understood the words that he said, but they didn't understand the deeper picture of what Jesus was trying to paint. Don't you know that I have to be in this environment as I'm growing up? They didn't get it. They didn't understand completely what he was saying. And then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Treasured what? Treasured the whole episode of he's staying behind. They can't find him. They go back to Jerusalem. They find him in church. And she says, son, what are you doing? He says, Mom, don't you know I have to be here? I have to be in this environment. What's happening in that environment? There's an exchange taking place. He's with teachers. They're teaching him. He's teaching them. She treasured all that in her heart. She pondered those things. And at the end, it says in verse 52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. And I want you to leave that up there for just a second. I want you to know that 18 years after this story, there's another story in the Bible. It's the story of Jesus at 30 years of age, and they're at a wedding of family or friends, and the whole family, Jesus, his mom, his brothers, his sisters, they're all there, and they run out of wine. And evidently Mary was very close to this family, and she knew they were about to be publicly humiliated and embarrassed because they're running out of wine at a wedding feast. And Mary is moved. She's stirred in her heart. She's moved to action, but she can't do anything about it. But she's watched her son from this day forward in that temple where she found him. And for the last 18 years, he had been growing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. And she had been observing that, and she felt like she saw now the full picture of what was going on in his life. And she comes to him and she says, son, you can change this situation today. You can fix this. He has been growing and coming into an understanding fully of who he is and what he is here to do. But he says, Mom, it's not my time. It's not my time to start doing miracles yet. It's not time to start drawing attention to myself. If you've been around here and you've been in any of our Christology classes or you've just been here for a while, you understand that the Bible is clear. Paul is clear. Jesus denied, set aside the deity part of who he was to become fully 100% a human being. And if he could not do that, he could not truly become the worthy lamb, the sacrifice. A man ushered in sin. A man had to take the sin on his back and pay the price. His human side is trying to come to terms with who he is and what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to do it. And if the truth were known, because he set aside the deity side of who he was at 30 years of age, he would probably be like a whole lot of other human beings, and he would have dreams and he would have thoughts and he'd be pondering the future and what he wants to do, but he'd have trouble kickstarting it, getting it going. I'm always going to do this someday. But his mom steps in after observing him for 18 years, from the time she had to go back to Jerusalem to find him in the temple when he said, Mom, don't you understand? I have to be here. And she watched as he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. And she said, no, son, it's time. It's time for you to be who you are supposed to be. It's time for you to take all that has happened in the last 18 years of your life and put it into play. So here is the question. If Jesus, knowing that from that day when he was 12 years old, when he said, don't you understand that I have to be in this environment, an environment we would call church today, don't you know I have to be in this environment? She took that, she treasured it in her heart, she pondered it, no doubt she responded to it. The question is, if he would not have been raised in that environment, would that have happened? If she would have taken him home and said, son, this is ridiculous, you're a child, you don't know what you're talking about, this is crazy, she would have just raised him in a good home, in a good village, with good family, but would not have raised him in the environment of church, would that have happened? Would he have grown in wisdom? Would he have grown in stature? Would he have grown in favor with God and of men? God would have still loved him. His mama would have still loved him. But it's a fair and an honest question. If he would not have been raised in the environment of God, an environment that goes beyond even the home, but the environment of what we would call the house of God, what the Bible would have called the house of God. We understand we are the house of God, but please allow me to use biblical terminology to make a point today. What we would call church, the house of God, the environment of God. If he would not have been raised in that environment, would that have happened? And if that would not have happened, would the day when she came to him at 30 years old and said, you can do something about this situation at this wedding. Fill the water pots. Do what he says to do. You can take that down. Thank you. I ponder my life more now than I ever have, and as you get older, you will see that you will hopefully do the same thing. I think it's more common than not. As people grow older, they become more reflective. There was a segment in my life where as I became reflective, I battled some regrets because as I reflected back, it's like, oh, if I'd have done this different, or if I would have done this or wouldn't have done that. Then you get older and you begin to see God's fingerprints all over your life, and you see the divine providence of God, and you begin to just rejoice for even every failure almost, because you realize it was out of those failures that God carved on you, and he did works in you that could have never happened if you wouldn't have been humbled in those failures. But I become more reflective, more introspective, and I think about the chain reactions in my life. I think about the connecting dots in my life. I think about the things that would happen naturally and spiritually. And I've shared with you before just the chain reaction, even meeting my wife, that if I take that and I begin to put that in reverse and go back, well, if this wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened, but that wouldn't have happened if this wouldn't have happened. And then you get to a point where you can't regret it, because I realized that if my life would not have been out of control, so out of control, that my mom came to me one day and said, Scotty, you need to pack your bags. You're out of here. You are leaving your friends. You're going to separate yourself from this party crowd that you've become a part of, and you are leaving here. And you are leaving this college, and you're going to this Bible college down in Florida. We're going to put some space in here, and we're going to put you in an environment of God and get you back on track. Now, I don't know how it is today with some parents and some children and their interaction, but I can tell you that in my day, you respected your parents. CPS wasn't around then. It was a common everyday occurrence to get your chops slapped, get your hair pulled. You backtalk your mama, if she's got a broom in her hand, that's what she's going to use. I grew up in a day that some of you can relate to where we are not joking when we say, your mama said, go out to the tree and cut a switch and come back in here. My mom was very cruel. She wouldn't allow us to be rude to people. She was a mean mother. She forced us to be polite and to have manners. She got upset when we didn't say thank you to somebody, when we didn't say please, when we didn't call someone sir or ma'am. She was a cruel mother. And her cruel nature went to the extremes when she said, as long as you live in my house, you're going to church. Horrible, horrible mother. Think about those days when she said, you're out of here, and I tried to put up a fight because I didn't want to leave. I knew that my lifestyle was destroying the very call and plan of God for my life. I knew that if something didn't happen, that I was going to wake up 30 years old, exactly where I was at 20 years old, and I'd probably be the town drunk living under the bridge down here. I knew all that, but at the same time, I didn't want to separate myself. I didn't know how to separate myself. I was scared to separate myself. And there was part of that life at that age that I'm just going to tell you I liked. And she gave me no choice. And so everything that I wouldn't do to make it happen, she did it for me, like she had been doing for the first 20, 21 years. And she said, you're going, you are doing this. I think about the fact that if my life wouldn't have been so messed up, she wouldn't have made me leave and go to Florida. And if I wouldn't have went to Florida and I wouldn't have went to that school, I wouldn't have met that woman. I wouldn't have fell in love with her. We wouldn't have got married. We wouldn't have our baby. Cornerstone Family Church probably would not even exist. You wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. The people that have met here, that have fallen in love, and now you're married, and now you're having your own babies, and the people that all the stuff that God has done, it's the divine providence of God, and you chase it all back, and you chase it all back, and how much of the good stuff that's happened in our lives and in the lives of people connected to us has happened because there was a mama in your life that put her foot down and said, no, it stops now, and you're doing this starting tomorrow. We don't think about that. We think about life in the framework of happenstance and circumstance and coincidence. But in the kingdom of God, based on the Word of God, we know that's not how life is really happening. Yes, there's free will. And yes, stuff just happens because of our free will and our choices. But God, who was sovereignly involved in our lives, knowing the end from the beginning, who was Alpha and Omega, steps into our future before we even get there, while we're still in our mother's womb or before. He's making plans for our lives based on decisions He already knows that we're going to make. Free will never get beyond God's sovereignty, because He's the Alpha and the Omega. He slain the Lamb to save us before the founding of the foundations of the earth, before the earth was even put together. He saw what was going to happen, and He made plans for the cross. And as I get more introspective, I look at my life, and I realize of all the valuable people that God has brought into my life, some very valuable men and women of God, some pastors that just, I think, where would I be if I would not have been brought into their world, into their environment? But if there was one person in my life that probably has done more to kickstart chain reactions that has produced the good life that I have, it's my mom. I very seldom got mad at my dad growing up. I love my dad. I miss my dad. He was a very special man, and many of you here today knew him and know what I'm talking about. But my dad was not the enforcer. I rarely got mad at my dad, because my dad did nothing to make me mad. My dad was not the disciplinary. He did it every once in a while when my mom made him, and he kind of stored it up, and when he started, he didn't finish. When he took the belt off and started spanking, that's when you started going in circles as he's spanking, and he's talking to you the whole time he's spanking. I told you if you ever. But it was rare, once a year. My dad never got mad at him. the once-a-year disciplinary. My mom was the 3 times a day disciplinary. If we wanted permission to do something, we knew you go to Mom, because we knew what Dad was going to say. Well, son, whatever your mother says. And he was a man's man. He wasn't a pushover. My dad just understood that my mom knew more information about what was going on in our lives because he was always out working. He knew she knew more and could make a better decision. Here's 7 things that has happened in my life, growing up through my childhood to my adult years, that happened in my life because my mom said, you are going to church. If you live in this house and you're only 12 years old, so you are going to live in this house, you're going to church. And it wasn't enough just to go to church. My mom constantly volunteered us to do things in the church. We were one of those families. We have several of those families here who just wear many hats. No matter what's going on, they're there. Their kids are there. They're serving. Those, you know, that any church this size is going to have at least a half a dozen families that become the foundation of that church. They're just going to carry the load. We were always one of those families. And my mom was always making it clear that if they're doing a Christmas play and they're looking for someone to volunteer to sing a solo, we would be those volunteers. Our home was always open. It was always an extension of the church. There was always people in our home. We grew up on a farm. Our farm was an extension of the house of God. We were always doing things on that farm concerning the church. Here are 7 quick things that happened in my life that I have to ask myself, if I did not grow up in church, if my mom did not raise me in church in the environment of God, would have these things happened in my life? And I could put them all under the category of growing in wisdom and stature and favor of God and man. I've bundled some of these because they're kind of all connected. The first thing that I can clearly see, that being raised in church, a mom who said, you're going to church, the first thing that always pops to my mind is that being raised in a church environment attacked my shy, insecure, low self-esteem nature. I was that kid, man. I was that kid who was always lurking in the corner, too shy to have a conversation with anybody, very, very low self-esteem, and I've told you before, I have no idea why I had such low self-esteem. I have no idea why. It wasn't because of how I was raised. But one thing for sure, I wasn't going to do much with my life. Too shy, too insecure, too much low self-esteem. One thing changed that in my life. Church. School wasn't helping. School, in fact, was reinforcing all that behavior. Being raised in church through the years, being told I'm getting on a stage, I'm going to be in the children's choir, I'm going to be in the Christmas play, I'm going to be in the Easter production, I'm going to take piano lessons, I'm going to do the piano recital in front of the people. Through the years, God began to whittle away at my shy, insecure, low self-esteem nature. Who would I be today if my mom would not have raised me in church where that would have changed? A second thing that happened in my life with my mom raising me in church was it socialized me into working with others in ways that it wasn't happening at school. At school, I attended school, you went to class, you came home. It wasn't where you really got socialized working on things together. Here we're just always together doing things. It may be working, doing a VBS now. It may be going on a picnic next week. It may be cleaning the dust off the floor of the new gym so we can epoxy it here in a couple weeks. That's a commercial, by the way. I'll let you know. We're just always doing things. Church socialized me, and I see how that was also connecting me to an environment where it was helping me get over my shyness and my insecurity, my low self-esteem. You see, in the world's environment, people see that stuff, and a lot of people are mean, and they will prey on you. They see that you're shy, you've got low self-esteem, you're insecure. The world is not going to help build you up. The world is not going to try to help you overcome that stuff. But in the environment of God, through the socialization that takes place inside of the framework of church, it's a completely different world. People are always encouraging you. They're always telling you, good job. They're always saying, come on, you can do this. That doesn't happen anywhere in the world like in here. Mamas, I don't know what you're going through with your children right now. I don't know the things. I know a lot of you come and you talk to me. It's like, I don't know what to do about my daughter, my son. I can't get them to interact. I can't get them to do this. And they're really battling this and battling that. And it's hard to come up with answers. There's no ABCs. But what I can tell you is raising them consistently in a God environment that's beyond just our homes has huge influence. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the mom who says, this is what we're going to do. It socialized me into working with others. Third, it introduced me to the personal worship experience. Listen, I want you to hear this. It introduced me to a personal worship experience where I discovered the presence, not just the existence of God. You've got to hear this. I was raised with the understanding of the existence of God. I never doubted His existence. Your children probably have never doubted the existence of God because they've grown up in your home where that's what you believed and that's what they believe. But being in a church environment, being in a worship setting, drew me into a place beyond just believing in the existence of God. I began to experience a presence of God that became very real to me. That would have never happened outside of the church environment. I would have still believed in the existence of God outside the walls of the church, but I would have never had a personal experience with the presence of God out there like I did in here. And by the way, that will change a child's life. And I know that we've come from many different backgrounds, and some have come from backgrounds like some of us where church service was rowdy, and people bouncing off the walls, and God was everywhere, and some of you grew up in churches where that was taboo and it wasn't allowed. So when we talk about the presence of God, you may not even be clear what we're talking about. And some of you were not raised in church at all. And so when you may be familiar with the term presence of God, but maybe you have never experienced the presence of God where you don't even know how to talk about it. You can't explain it. If you say, man, I just really felt the presence of God, and someone says, well, what do you mean by that? Make that concrete for me. That's too abstract. Make that concrete. I can't make the presence of God concrete for you. God tried to do it in the Old Testament because they didn't understand how to entertain His presence. So He'd show up in clouds, and He'd show up in fire. He'd show up in all kinds of tangible ways to let them know, my presence is here. This is a new covenant. He doesn't show up in clouds, and He doesn't show up in fire anymore. We entertain Him for 2,000 years. Since that day of Pentecost, we now entertain the Spirit of God mano in a very personal way. Where do we make that connection in that personal way with the very Spirit of God? Just because we are taught to believe in His existence? No. It's got to be in an environment, a worship environment, where yes, we're singing songs, we're looking at the screens, there's people up here making all kinds of noise. Say, okay, this is the part of church where we all sing. It can be that to you, or it can be something beyond that for you. It can become personal. I've told Hannah several times through the years, it's like, baby, when we're worshiping and stuff, I want you to just close your eyes. I want you to try to sense the presence of God. I don't want her to. I know she's not going to grow up in the same environment that I grew up in church. This is a different church world now, and we've tried to broaden the experience with God in today's contemporary non-denominational church settings in America. We're trying to broaden the whole experience with God instead of just being this or just being that. I want her to come into a place of feeling the presence of God. Being in a worship moment and feeling broken and crying and not even sure why she's crying. Someone says, "Why are you crying?" It's like, "I don't know." In a moment of great joy, "Why are you so happy?" "I don't know." The presence of God. I would have never known the presence of God if I had never been raised in the environment of God, and I'd never been raised in the environment of God if my mom would not have said, "We're going to church." Fourth, it cultivated my faith in ways that my parents could not. Parents, no one's ever going to take your place in discipling your children, teaching your children, having those conversations with your children about God. But I want you to know, they're going to hear and grab on to things at church they're never going to get from you. It's just a fact. If you think your household is going to be an exception, good luck with that. They haven't believed you in a lot of other things you've told them. Somebody else's mommy or daddy tells them, and suddenly it's the gospel, right? We know how this works. My daughter needs to hear me talk about God. She needs to see me model my faith. She needs to see her mother model her faith in God. But my daughter needs to see a lot of other people model their faith too. She needs to see it's not just us. Sometimes kids go through this thing and they doubt if their parents have any sanity at all. Parents are wrong about everything. Well, they're wrong about this and this and this. Maybe they're wrong about God too. You don't think kids go through that even more now than when some of us were kids? The challenge in a child's life is ridiculously beyond what I experienced when it comes to the things of God. I grew up in a time where most people went to church, and if you didn't go to church, you still had no doubt that the Bible was the Word of God, and it was real. That is not the world we live in anymore. Your kids are going to be challenged in ways that you can't even relate to concerning the existence of the God of the Bible. If you think you can reinforce that in them by yourself, I hope you're right. Church cultivated my faith in ways that my parents could not. And my mama, boy, she was the one that, come on, we're going to read the Bible. Come on, we're going to pray. My mom did those things in our house. She was the pastor in our family. But church cultivated my faith in ways that she could not. But she was the one that said, come on, we're going to church. Fifth of all, it framed the call of God for my life. Let me just tell you this. I would have never known that there was a call of God in my life if it wasn't from my mom. My mom saw things in me. And I know if you're a child here today, I want you to listen to me. Because your parents have probably told you this and you thought that they were crazy. I want to tell you, children, something. Your parents see things in your life that you can't see yourself. If you're 8, well, let's see, no, you're not 8 if you're in here. What are you, if you're 12? 12 should be the youngest people in here right now, right? If you're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, I know you think that you see it all and understand it all. When you turn 30, we will allow you to come back and apologize to us. Because you're going to wake up one day and you're going to go, oh my gosh. Because you're going to realize that your little world was like this big. And your parents, with their vast experience at life, their world was like this. And ain't nothing changed in humanity for 6,000 years in growing up. Technology changes, humanity does not. And parents see things in our lives. And mamas especially, because where God wired mamas as women to be just so tapped in to that unseen realm, that touchy-feely realm that us guys just really can't relate to a lot. And mamas see things and they sense things and they feel things. They got spidey senses, man. And my mom knew every time I sinned, somehow her spidey senses went off and I'd come home and she's like, you sinned today, didn't you? And she knew. I don't know how she knew. And she saw there was a call of God in my life. Now, we've all been called to sonship. I'm talking about, she saw that God was calling me into an area of ministry. And she didn't know the particulars, but she saw it. And she began to proclaim it, and she began to declare it. She began to speak those things that weren't as though they were, as God did at creation, and as the Bible reminds us that we are to be just like Him. She prophesied and she declared. And she understood that if this call of God is going to be surfaced, if it's going to be resurrected, if it's going to be pulled out of my child, I, as his mother, do not have the power to do that, because you see, a mom is always so busy, advising, counseling, disciplining, commanding, doing all these things that a child cannot look at their parent as their spiritual guide. They can't do it. It's not possible. You're my disciplinary. You're my mom. You're my dad. You tell me what to do. It's hard for children to look at parents as their spiritual guide in life. Well, where do they find the spiritual guidance? Where do they find the environment that takes maybe what their mom saw and said, I see this in your life? And you moms are the biggest cheerleaders. You're trying to convince your children all the time that they can do things that they don't believe they can do. Am I right? Your kids are always saying, well, I can't do that. Moms are always the first ones to say, you can do this. And if you say that again, I'm going to smack your mouth. It was in the environment of God in church that my mom said, we're going. It was in that environment that God began to pull His call out of my life and make it clear where I could understand. The sixth thing that happened to me in a church environment that my mom took me to was, it taught me how to do ministry. How can you have a call of God in your life to do ministry if you don't learn to do ministry? And look, we know this is all spiritual stuff, but there are logistics to ministry. And you learn things that I know that Pastor Tim has got such a heart for this. I've told you before, it's one of the big things with VBS. We love the kids. We love what it's doing for the kids. But we love that it brings adults together, it unifies them, it excites them, and it teaches them how to do ministry. Your children, we have them on a stage dancing and singing and doing productions, and we have them as soon as they're old enough, they're back there, they're serving in classrooms because we're teaching your children how to do ministry. Why? Because according to the Bible, you're in complete disobedience if you're not doing ministry in life. You will be blessed because you do ministry. You will miss blessings because you don't do ministry. We're all called to be ministers. How do our children know that they need to serve, they need to give, they need to minister? Because they grow up in church. Churches like Cornerstone that say, you know what, you're going to get on that stage and you're going to jump up and down and it's going to minister to people. Well, how's jumping up and down anything but fun? We don't know. But all I can tell you, I was sitting over there getting edified the whole time they were bouncing. I was laughing, I was smiling. We were pointing out kids and saying, look at them, how they do that. And look at them, they were ministering to us. I love it because so many of our teenagers, in fact, if you're a teenager here and you're not involved in children's ministry, it's a very, very rare thing. And they go back there and they serve. We're teaching them to get beyond themselves and give their lives away. Church that my mom took me to taught me that, and last of all, it taught me the value. Some people have not thought of this, and they've underestimated it. It taught me the value of what Jesus died for. You go, well, that was me. He died for the church. And if you don't grow up in church, you will not understand the value of the church, that thing that Jesus gave His whole life for, that thing that He is building and the gates of hell will not prevail. Yes, I'm talking about more than a building, more than a sign out front. Yes, I'm talking about the people that is inside the building, but if there's not a building, there's no people inside of it, and they're not doing works of ministry. It was in this environment that my mom said, we're going. That I learned how to get outside of myself and see the bigger picture of what God was trying to do. If Jesus would not have been raised in that environment that he said at 12 years old to his mom, "Don't you know that I have to be here?" See, our 12-year-olds, they don't know to say that to us. "Don't you know, Mommy, Daddy, I have to grow up in church?" He grew in wisdom and stature, and he grew in the favor of man and the favor of God. I want to show you one verse before we pray for you mamas today. It's the story in 1 Samuel of a little mama-to-be named Hannah. You hear it often when we do baby dedications. I love this little lady so much because I could relate to her heart, and I have a woman that I'm married to that definitely, it's funny that, you know, our daughter's name is Hannah because my wife had the heart of Hannah before our Hannah came across, wanting a child so bad that it hurt. Hannah wanted a child so bad, and she would go to the temple, she'd go to church, and she would pray. And she'd have stammering lips, and the priest there didn't understand what she was doing. She was so pouring herself out, and he thought she was drunk. And he'd say, "Go home, woman, you're drunk. Go sober up." And she's like, I'm not drunk. I'm desperate." We misread desperation a lot in people. God hears her cry, gives her a child. It's the time of the year for feasts, and this little boy, Samuel, his father is going to the feast and going to the feast of dedication and all these feasts. And Hannah's like, "Well, I can't go with you yet. Samuel's too young. I'm going to wait till I wean him. And when I wean him, I'm going to take him to church. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to leave him there." As soon as she weans him, she takes him to the church, and we don't know exactly how old he was. There's a lot of conflict in history about what age that could have been. Believe it or not, there are some cultures that breastfeed for a considerably long time compared to American culture. She took him to the priest. She handed him to the priest to be dedicated to the Lord, to give him back to the Lord. And she did something that was just unthinkable to us. And God gives us the story, not because He's wanting you to bring all your children and leave them with me, because, oh my gosh, I would resign so fast. He's trying to show us the bigger picture spiritually of what it all means. She brings little Samuel and she gives him to the priest. And she says, "You keep him and you raise him in the house of God." And I like this in 1 Samuel 1:28. It says, "Now so I give him to the Lord for his whole life. He will be given over to the Lord." And he worshiped the Lord there. Who worshiped the Lord there? And Samuel worshiped the Lord there, being raised in church. I give him to the Lord. His whole life he will be given to the Lord. How will I make sure that his whole life will be given to the Lord? He will have to be raised in church. And I love deeper on into the next chapter. It talks about how the priest's home was in disarray. His own sons were in rebellion and everything. But Samuel was just like Jesus. He was growing in wisdom and stature and favor. And it was really cool because there's a one verse there. It says, and when they would see Samuel, he would be stripped down to his ephod, ministering before the Lord. Isn't it interesting that the prophet Samuel, who becomes the first official prophet of Israel. Why? How did he do that? Because he was raised in church. What if he wasn't raised in church? He wouldn't have been the first prophet of Israel. How many of you guys believe that your little sons and your little daughters could be prophets, apostles, pastors, teachers, evangelists, worship leaders, great doctors and lawyers and pipe diggers and teachers and all kinds of things in the secular system that begins to have incredible influence in the community? What could our children be if they're raised in the house of God versus not being raised in the house of God. So funny enough, the little boy who was given to the Lord and raised in church and becomes the first prophet of Israel, he would later on in life go to a family's house, seek out the youngest son there, pour oil over his head, declare him to be the future, what would end up being the second king of Israel, proclaimed throughout history as the King of Kings. How interesting that this king, anointed by this prophet, would be known as the king who would strip down to his ephod in the city streets and dance before the Lord, minister to the Lord. Is all that coincidence, happenstance, circumstance? Or is all this the ripple effect of children raised in church? I leave it with you. My mama was convinced that if she didn't keep me in church, the call of God she saw in my life would never happen. I sure can't argue with her. My mom was the type, and I've shared the stories before, and the jury's out in the details of what was really going on with this, but I would come home at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, not in great shape, many a night. Try to sneak into the house, go past my parents' bedroom to get to my bedroom, and hear her in there praying, crying out for me. She would never ask me if I heard her, but she would say, "Scotty, I never stop praying till you get home." And I used to wonder, is she just laying there? Because I always had a hot rod. I always had loud cars. Couldn't really sneak into the driveway. I know many a time our driveway just had a little bit of a slope, and I would stop at the top of the driveway, get it going, and cut it off. I always had straight drive cars. A lot of y'all don't even know what that is. And I would try to drift down the parking lot. It was about 100 yards from the top of our driveway to the house. And I would try to drift down so nobody could hear me coming home. But I would wonder, is my mom just laying there and waiting to hear from me? As soon as she hears me come in the door, she jumps down on her knees and goes, "Oh, God, I cry out for Scotty. Oh, save his soul." I know that's not what was happening. You know how I so easily believe that she prayed till I got home? Because now I'm a parent. It's changed everything. My whole life revolves around my daughter. I have very little energy that I expend on myself. It all goes on her, helping her with her things and plans for her life. I don't doubt that my mom, who was really tapped into that spiritual stuff, man, that she cried out till I got home, "God, keep him alive. God, don't let him die tonight. Lord, remind him of who you are." Now God's already wanting to do those things. There's something powerful about a mama's prayers because, according to James, it's the fervent, effectual prayer that moves the hand of God. And I can get token prayers from all kinds of people all day long, but I know when my mama prayed for me, it was fervent. She was tapping into something. If you're a mom here today, I don't care if you got your first one in the oven right now, or if your kids have grown up and they've got kids and their kids have got kids. If you're a mama here today, I want you to come up here with me. I don't mean up here, stay down there. If we all come up here, it's just going to be weird. I'll have to go down there then. Maybe I should do that. Get the mamas up here and me go down there. That's a good plan. I'm going to confess something to you mamas because I want to help some of you get through a season you're in with the age that your children are at right now, and you're maybe even not just frustrated but sad because you're, unlike the little girl in the video, as they zoom in on that last little note, I love you, Mama, and I see. I want you to know that I know there are seasons that we doubt that seriously, that our children see anything. Now, it's going to be Father's Day in a few weeks, and I'll get to talk about all the cool things that dads do that kids all see that because we're heroes, man. Because we only do things that are obvious. It's the way men are. We're very superficial. And we're the ones that take the kids to climb the trees and do all the dangerous things that Mama won't let them do. We're the heroes. No, Dad is awesome. Mom's just an old frumpy grumpy. And we wonder if our children see the things that moms do behind the scenes. Everything from keeping them physically alive, teeth in their head, hair on their head, stink off their armpits, clothes that are clean, picking it out, making sure they match, fixing the boo-boos, holding them when they're broken. We wonder, do they really even see? Do they even care? Well, the truth is, there is a season of life, a reasonably long season maybe. Your children are going to take you for granted. They're just going to assume they're going to have clean clothes. They're just going to assume that you're going to help them with all their projects in school and with their homework. They're just going to assume that you're going to kiss all their boo-boos. Can I encourage you today and tell you that them taking you for granted to do those things is a beautiful, powerful thing. The one thing your children probably never doubt in life is that you, as mama, are going to be there doing the things that you do. They may doubt everything else. You're probably the last thing they'll ever doubt. Therefore, they're going to take you for granted. That's a powerful thing. Someday they'll come back and say thanks. I promise. I want to pray for you guys today. You guys are awesome. I want you to take the stories I've told about my own mom today, and I want you to personalize them. If you're here today, and I got to say this, if you're here today and you say, Pastor Scott, my children have already grown up, they're out of the house, and boy, I needed this sermon 20 years ago. Don't you beat yourself up. There is no condemnation in this place. You do not beat yourself up. You say, oh, Pastor Scott, I did not raise my kids in church, and oh my gosh, this happened and that happened, and oh, now I'm battling regret. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. God's got this. You're still mama. You still have influence. There's still nobody like you. Nobody. I want to pray for you. Just grab a hand of some other mama there. I wish I could have bought all y'all ice cream cones or something today just to say thanks, but you know how we are with getting stains on the carpet and everything. It's like, Father, I thank you for this powerful assembly of women. Women are powerful anyway, Lord. Your word makes that abundantly clear that women are tapped in. And when they become mamas, Lord, it opens up a whole new realm. How would we know the compassion of Christ if there were no mamas? Father, I wonder to what degree we would even understand servitude without mothers modeling servitude. The kindness, the patience, the courage, the perseverance. Lord, the measures of all these things seem to be the largest in mothers. I thank you for these moms today. I don't even want to think about where Cornerstone Family Church would be without the influence of mothers. Lord, any one of them can walk into total chaos at any given time and have the ship right and steering in the right direction in 30 seconds. The giftings that come with motherhood they're quite impressive, Lord. Today, Lord, I pray that through this day, through this service, through this message, through just being treated just extra special through this day. I pray they will be encouraged. They'll be encouraged. And they'll be filled with joy. And that, Lord, they'll be challenged with what they've heard here today. That they will have a fresh understanding of their influence as mothers in their children's lives. I thank you for these moms, and I bless them today, Lord. I bless them in your name. All right, mamas, put your hands out like this and just kind of lean toward me. Group hug. Group hug. Group hug. Oh, that was awesome. Thank you, ladies. Go enjoy the rest of your day.